What is going on, guys and girls? My name is James of Twintendo. Hope you're having an awesome day. And yeah, as you can see by the title of this video, I've got a kind of interesting concept to talk to you guys about today. Now obviously we'll find out in a couple of weeks time whether this is true or not, but you know, while there's a bit of hype around the game, I'm going to talk about whether Pokémon Super Mystery Dungeon is a remake of the old versions, blue version and red version of Pokémon Mystery Dungeon, which came out in 2005, or whether they're a new game entirely. So I'm going to talk about why it could be a remake and why it isn't going to be a remake, and then I'm going to give my overall opinion. Now before I start this video, shout out must be made to Fan-Made Endings, who did comment on one of our videos suggesting could it be a remake, and obviously I would have never really thought about it. I just thought it was going to be a new game, but you know, it's kind of interesting to talk about why it isn't going to be a remake. So shout out to them for giving me the idea, and let's jump into the video. So why is this game going to be a remake? So first of all, I'm going to talk about its title, Pokémon Super Mystery Dungeon. Now on first glance it might seem, you know, bog standard, you know, nothing's changed, but there is a slight difference with the title. So if you didn't realise, every other Mystery Dungeon game has had the kind of phrasing or other, you know, subtitle after Mystery Dungeon. So Pokémon Mystery Dungeon Blue and Red version, Pokémon Mystery Dungeon Explorers of Time, Darkness and Sky, and Pokémon Mystery Dungeon Gates to Infinity. So as you can see, Pokémon Super Mystery Dungeon kind of mixes up the construct of the title. We don't really know what makes it super at this point. Obviously we will in a couple of weeks time when they do show gameplay, which I'm guessing is going to be around E3 time, and to be honest, only the people working on the game will know what makes it super. If the game was called Pokémon Mega Mystery Dungeon, we could probably speculate that 6th generation Pokémon from X and Y and Pokémon Omega Ruby and Alpha Sapphire would be in that game, because obviously the potential in Mega Evolutions making the game Mega. However, Super Mystery Dungeon doesn't give much away. Now we don't know whether it's super because it's a new game and they just want to go for a new title, or is it super because it's kind of a 3D remake of Pokémon Mystery Dungeon Blue and Red version. Another point that suggests it could be a remake is that it's been 10 years since the originals came out. So that's how kind of Pokemon remakes have been made in the past. Every 10 years they started to make the remake. So with Leaf Green and Fire Red, 10 years after the originals they came out, 10 years after Gold and Silver came out, Heart Gold and Soul Silver came out, and 12 years for Omega Ruby and Alpha Sapphire, but that's due to other reasons such as, you know, the console, you know, the 3DS not being ready at the time for a Pokemon game. But yeah, it does kind of fit that, you know, time span of 10 years, so that's kind of interesting to take into account. Obviously if it wasn't 10 years, it's less likely to be a remake, and still with the 10-year thing, I'm still skeptical that there is going to be a remake. Just because it's 10 years doesn't mean they'll remake every Pokemon game, but it is something to think about. Another thing that goes with remakes is that they're normally on a new console. So the original Pokémon Mystery Dungeon games were on the Nintendo DS with Blue version and the Game Boy Advance with Red version. So that kind of follows the trend of remakes, you know. It won't be on the Nintendo DS this game, it'll be on the 3DS, the new console. But again, you know, it's been 10 years, so we do expect that, and you know, it doesn't necessarily mean it's going to be a remake. Now Fan-Made Endings made a point in their comment that the font of the new game, Pokémon Super Mystery Dungeon, was very similar to the original Mystery Dungeon games, you know, Blue version and Red version. So as you can see, they are very similar, only Pokemon Super Mystery Dungeon is coloured in obviously a different colour. Gates to Infinity, however, did have a different font, which is quite interesting. I don't know why they did that, obviously maybe to make it look more fresh and new, but they have gone back to an old font, which could suggest a couple of things. Now first of all, could it suggest a remake? Personally, I don't think so, just because Explorers of Time, Darkness and Sky use the same font as well. So does that mean we're going back to a 2D sprite style? I'd hope so, personally. Not a big fan of the 3D Mystery Dungeons. If they can kind of incorporate 2D and 3D together, that would be great. But otherwise, I really don't think that supports, you know, evidence for a remake. So yeah, let's go on to reasons why this game will not be a remake. Now a lot of you guys who may think it is a remake due to the 10-year thing, I'm going to explain why it probably isn't a remake and why it's just more of a coincidence. Now the reason I think this is a coincidence is very simple. Ever since Generation 3 there's been a Pokemon Mystery Dungeon game released for each generation. So in 2005 Japan got Pokemon Mystery Dungeon Blue and Red version, which was 3 years after Ruby and Sapphire released in Japan. In 2007 they got Explorers of Time and Darkness, a year after Pokemon Diamond and Pearl came out. Explorers of Sky came out a couple of years after, but that's just because it's more of an expansive game, don't really add on too much. Pokemon Black and White came out in 2010 in Japan, and 2 years later they had Gates to Infinity, and now we've had X and Y in 2013, 2 years later, Mystery Dungeon game's announced. So that's why I think it's going to be a 6th generation Mystery Dungeon game rather than a remake. Even though time does kind of line up with the 10-year gap, I still think there isn't much point of making a remake of the original games since they're already pretty damn good and they look pretty good. I don't think it would sell well personally, because I think people who do own that game will still have their copies. So that's just my opinion. Also, as I said earlier, the font of the the new game does match up with every single other Mystery Dungeon game apart from Gates to Infinity. Still don't know why they changed the font. Maybe to get kind of a fresh outlook, but decided to go back to the original font. Like I said, it could be due to the sprite kind of graphics of the original games. We might be going to that. Who knows? Personally, I'd be happy to see the 2D come back, but I'd still be pretty damn happy with 3D. As long as I can play as Mudkip guys, honestly don't care, because Gates to Infinity had 5 starters, I think, 6 starters, whatever. Terrible selection. That is why the game flopped. So yeah guys, that is my opinion. What do you guys think? Do you think it's going to be a remake, or do you think it's not going to be a remake like me? Leave your comment down below. So if you haven't subscribed already, you can click on the screen now or down below. It honestly makes my day when one of you guys subscribes. And yeah, we've got tons of Super Mystery Dungeon videos lined up for this week and next week. So hopefully if you do like this kind of stuff, then stay tuned for more, because I've got plenty planned. And if you haven't seen our previous 2 videos, as you can see there on screen now, you can click on it and it'll take you to another tab and you can watch it there. So yeah guys, thank you very much for watching. Please like the video if you did enjoy it, and I will see you on our next video. Have an awesome day guys.